I never really know how to start this kind of confession, so I'll do it in the most honest way possible. I grew up in a house in a mid-sized city in the Midwest of the United States, the kind where everyone thinks they know everyone else. That's where I lived with my parents and my older sister. For a long time, I thought the problem was me. In our house, nothing was ever said directly. My sister took up space as if it were natural. She spoke loudly, interrupted conversations, made decisions for everyone. My parents laughed it off. They said she had a strong personality, that she was a leader. When I tried to do the same, they told me to lower my voice. I learned early on that there were invisible rules. Conversations revolved around her achievements, her plans, her ideas. When I tried to talk about something from school, a hard exam, the conversation died within seconds. Someone changed the subject. Someone got up to get water. Someone checked their phone. My parents liked to say they were preparing us for the real world, that the world didn't care about feelings, that swallowing certain things was part of growing up. I believed them, or I tried to. I told myself I just had to hold on a little longer, that it wouldn't be forever, that all I had to do was study, get into college, get out of there. It was a simple plan, but it kept me moving. Around that time, money entered my life in a quiet way, considering the damage it would cause later. It was a few months after my paternal grandmother died. She wasn't affectionate in the classic sense, but she was always straightforward with me. She liked to ask what I wanted to do when I grew up. That alone already made her different from everyone else in the house. When the inheritance paperwork was finally settled, my parents called me into the kitchen one ordinary morning. They spoke calmly. They said my grandmother had left a specific amount of money for me. It wasn't a fortune, but it was enough to make a difference at the beginning of adult life. I felt something strange, a mix of relief and fear. Relief because it was something of my own. Fear because, in that house, nothing ever came without strings attached. My father said my sister was about to open her own business, a long-time dream according to him, something that required sacrifices from the whole family. He said family while looking directly at me, as if reminding me of an obligation I had never agreed to. My mother joined in, saying they were already helping a lot, that they had reorganized their finances, made adjustments, that now they needed me to do my part. I asked carefully why I should invest in something that wasn't mine. My father replied that it wasn't an investment. It was support, that I was too young to need that money right now, that my sister needed it more, that everything would work itself out later. I said I planned to save it for college. It was the first moment in that conversation when the air changed. He straightened his posture, said college was expensive, that they were making a huge effort to help me with that, said it didn't make sense for me to worry about something they were already handling. My mother dropped the dishcloth into the sink and finally looked me in the eyes. She said I was being selfish, that my sister had always had more courage than me, that it was unfair for me to sit on money while someone else in the family was struggling to build something. I tried to argue. I said I didn't trust the business, that I didn't feel comfortable, that money was the only thing giving me even a minimal sense of security. My father's expression hardened. He said, without raising his voice, that if I insisted on being difficult, they could rethink some plans. He said paying for college wasn't a legal obligation, and that I was almost an adult and needed to learn that choices have consequences. That was when the conversation stopped being a conversation. I thought about the small dorm room I hadn't even seen yet. I thought about tuition, books, everything I wouldn't be able to pay for on my own. I thought about how badly I needed to get out of that house and how, ironically, I still depended on them to do it. The conversation ended without a period, without a clear conclusion. My mother left the kitchen first. My father stayed a second longer, looking at me as if waiting for me to say the right thing. I said nothing. I spent the rest of the day walking around the house with the feeling that something had been decided for me. In my room, I sat on the floor, trying to convince myself that maybe they were right. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe it was just money. That night, I barely slept. Deep down, I already knew it wouldn't end there. Whenever someone asks me why I don't trust my family, I think of one specific incident. I must have been about 13 at the time. We were on a short trip, just a weekend thing, to a lake a few hours away from home. One of those places adults call relaxing. We rented a simple wooden cabin. My sister had just come back from college for that weekend. She brought 2 friends with her. Neither of them spoke to me when we arrived. They moved as a closed group, laughing at jokes I wasn't part of. I tried to stay busy. I read a little, walked near the water, pretended everything was fine. At some point, I sat alone near the makeshift dock, swinging my legs, trying to enjoy the silence. I remember thinking that maybe that was one of the rare moments when no one was watching me. What happened next was fast and confusing. Someone came up behind me. I felt something covering my face. There was a shove. My body lost balance. The sound of the water is something I can still hear when I close my eyes. I didn't panic right away. I struggled, flailed my arms, swallowed a lot of water. When I came back up coughing, I saw 3 figures on the shore. My sister and her friends, laughing uncontrollably. I swam back on my own. Every stroke felt too long. My parents came afterward, not running, walking. I started crying as soon as I saw my mother. I tried to explain, still coughing up water. My sister spoke before I could. She said it had been a joke, said I always dramatized everything. Her friends agreed. They laughed at me again. My father said I needed to stop being so sensitive, that I knew how to swim, and that no one had gotten hurt. My mother commented that I was ruining the mood of the trip. I stood there, soaked, shaking from the cold, trying to process how something so wrong could be treated as nothing. No one asked if I was okay. No one apologized. That night, I heard laughter coming from the living room while I stayed locked in the bedroom. I heard my father comment that at the very least it had served to teach me to handle myself. So when years later my parents asked me for that money so naturally, part of me already knew. In that house, I would always be the available resource, never the person to be protected. Days later, I finally said yes about the money. My parents stopped bringing it up as if it had been resolved cleanly. My sister did too. She started moving around the house with that quiet look of victory, like someone who doesn't need to argue anymore because they've already won. The money left my account on an ordinary afternoon. I remember seeing the screen confirm the transfer and my balance dropped to 0. No speech, no thank you, just, it's for the good of the family. I tried not to think about it. I forced myself to focus on college forms, supply lists, campus maps. Whenever the anxiety tightened, I repeated to myself that it was temporary, that I was buying my way out. A few weeks later, the posts started appearing. First, photos of the empty space, concrete floors, white walls, stacked boxes, then shelves, shoes arranged by color, large mirrors, hanging lights on an industrial ceiling, everything very clean, very new. I saw it all on my phone, sitting on my bed with the door closed. I didn't like anything. I didn't comment. Pretending indifference became a habit. The opening happened on a Saturday night. I wasn't invited by anyone, which was almost comical, considering part of that place existed because of me. But invitations weren't the point. The point was the photos that came afterward. My sister sent the images directly to me, not in the family group chat, privately. People smiling with drinks in hand, a neon sign with the store's name, close-ups of custom shopping bags, a short video showing a line at the door, filmed from an angle that made it look bigger than it probably was. I scrolled through the images slowly. She sent a message right after. Something like, "Who would have thought it would work out so fast?" And a few minutes later, "It wouldn't have been possible without you." A heart at the end. The kind of sentence that sounds like gratitude but comes loaded with mockery. That's when I noticed a detail that wasn't part of the performance. In one of the photos, in the background, almost out of focus, there was a man leaning near the counter. Unshaven beard. A shirt too simple for the rest of the scene. He wasn't posing. He didn't look like part of the staff. He was there like someone who belonged, not like a guest. I zoomed in, adjusted the brightness, compared it with other photos. He appeared in more than one, always in the background, always too close. My mind started working on its own, pulling up memories I would have preferred to keep buried. Old arguments, violence, things breaking, a name that had never been spoken again in that house. I dropped the phone on the bed and tried to convince myself I was imagining things, that I was being paranoid, that it wasn't my problem. I knew I should let it go. But she made a point of provoking me with the messages, of reminding me that I was there, powerless, and that changed something inside me. I didn't do anything that night. I turned off my phone, took a shower, tried to think about something else, but the image of that man in the background of the photos wouldn't leave my head. Update 1. I spent the next few days pretending everything was normal. I woke up, had breakfast with my parents, answered when they spoke to me, smiled when they mentioned my sister's store as if it were a collective project. My sister showed up at the house less often. When she did, she was rushed, always on the phone, always with someone waiting for her outside. One night, she came into the kitchen while I was washing a glass, leaned against the counter, crossed her arms, and watched me in silence for a few seconds too long. Then she said, smiling, that the business was doing better than expected, that maybe soon they wouldn't even need our parents' help anymore. She tilted her head and asked if I had liked the opening photos. I said yes, that everything looked very nice. My voice was steady, but inside I was tense, waiting for the next blow. She laughed. That night I couldn't sleep. I thought about the money, about college, about that man in the photos. I sat on the bed with my laptop on my lap. At first, I didn't even know exactly what I was looking for. I typed the store's name into the browser, then my sister's name. Social media came first. Public photos, friends' comments, enthusiastic posts. Everything looked carefully edited to tell a story of early success. Young entrepreneurs, independent, confident. The kind of narrative people love to share. I scrolled slowly. Every photo felt like a small provocation. Every caption seemed written for someone specific. For me. When I got back to that opening photo, I stopped, zoomed in, compared it with others. The man was there, always close, always off-center, like someone who knows they shouldn't appear, but also isn't going anywhere. I opened another tab and typed a name I hadn't heard in years, a name that had caused screaming in that house. The images appeared almost immediately. Old photos, abandoned profiles, comments from years ago. It was him, a little older, a little heavier, but unmistakable. My mind started racing. If he was there, it meant my sister had lied. To the partners, to investors, to everyone who believed in the clean, professional image she wanted to sell. I thought about closing everything, shutting the computer down, pretending I had never seen any of it. After all, it wasn't my problem. I had already paid the price. Literally. But then I remembered her message, the heart at the end, it wouldn't have been possible without you. I remembered the lake, the kitchen, that constant feeling of being used and discarded. I started digging more carefully. I cross-checked dates, found old photos that lined up a little too well with the periods when she claimed she was focused only on school. I found his comments, his likes. Nothing explicit, but all there, like a poorly hidden puzzle. I thought about stopping with every new confirmation, thought I was being cruel, and at the same time, part of me felt something I barely recognized. Control. I told myself it wasn't revenge, it was just the truth. I opened a new profile on a social network, chose a generic photo, a common name, nothing that drew attention. It took me 2 full days to work up the courage to do anything concrete with it. 2 days of pretending to study while rereading the same information on the screen. 2 days of reopening the fake profile. I knew exactly who needed to be warned. Among the names tied to the business, there was the mother of one of the partners, the only adult involved who didn't seem enchanted by the idea of instant success. I found her profile. I waited until the house was quiet. My parents were watching TV in the living room. It was night. I wrote that I needed to talk about her daughter's business. She asked who I was. I said that mattered less than what I had to say. She told me to go on. I chose my words carefully. I didn't accuse. I said I had seen something she should know before continuing to be financially involved. I said I wasn't asking for anything, that the decision would be hers. She asked if I had proof. My stomach dropped. I said I had images and information that didn't match the official story they were telling, that my sister's relationship with that man wasn't recent or casual, and that he had a history that could put everything at risk. Then she asked for his name. When I said it, she didn't reply for a few seconds. Then she asked how I knew all of that. I said that wasn't the point, that I had nothing to gain from it, that I just didn't want to see someone putting money into something based on lies. She said everything had seemed too fast, that her daughter had pushed hard for her to trust it. I felt a strange mix of relief and guilt. She asked me to send what I had. My whole body tensed. I thought about traces, about consequences. Even so, I sent a few old images. Nothing that identified me directly. Nothing with my face. Nothing that proved my involvement beyond that disposable account. She thanked me. I thought I would feel satisfaction, some kind of victory. What came instead was a strange emptiness, mixed with fear. The next day, things started to change. My sister spent the entire day on the phone, pacing through the house, speaking quietly, her brow furrowed. My parents exchanged worried looks. They commented that one of the investments still wasn't confirmed. That night, I heard my sister arguing with someone outside, near the car. Her voice sounded different, less confident. I went to bed early, knowing that call had been the first push, and that the rest would fall on its own. Conversations started to stop whenever I walked into a room. Phones began vibrating at strange hours. My sister no longer pretended things were normal. She spoke too fast, gestured too much, lost her temper over anything. I watched everything from a distance. The first fights happened over the phone, that mix of disbelief and contained rage. Sometimes she locked herself in her room. Sometimes she stormed out of the house, slamming the door, and came back hours later with red eyes. My parents were slowly pulled into the chaos almost without noticing. At first, it was just scattered comments during dinner. Things like, "It seems one of the mothers is taking too long," or "Those girls are overreacting." Then came the improvised meetings in the living room, laptops open, papers spread across the coffee table. I walked past with a glass of water and pretended not to hear, but I heard everything. My father stepped into a role he had always liked, that of mediator, the sensible adult trying to organize other people's messes. My mother sat on the couch, saying it was giving her a headache. My sister shouted more than she spoke. She said she had been betrayed, that someone had spread lies, that people were drawing conclusions without hearing her side. The partners, according to her, were exaggerating, creating drama, putting at risk something that could have worked really well. One specific night, I heard an argument that echoed through the entire house. Doors slamming, quick footsteps in the hallway. My sister passed by my room without looking at me. My parents followed right after, trying to calm her down. I sat on my bed, feeling that ugly, almost shameful relief grow in my chest. At the same time, guilt crept in. I thought maybe I had gone too far, that real people were being affected, but then I remembered being thrown into the lake. The bank transfer made without a choice. The calls started coming late at night. I heard the house phone ring after 11. My father answered in the hallway, speaking quietly, pacing back and forth. Sometimes he hung up irritated. My sister started sleeping poorly. I heard her walking around the house at night, opening the fridge, slamming drawers. Sometimes she cried in her room. Other times she shouted on the phone, not caring if anyone heard. One late afternoon, she walked into the kitchen while I was sitting at the table, pretending to read something on my computer. She said someone had decided to pull money out of the business, that it didn't make sense, that they were sabotaging everything. My father asked who. She answered with the name of the partner's mother, said that woman had always been too suspicious, that she had never truly believed in the project, that now she was using any excuse to back out. I felt my heart start to race. I had to focus, not to laugh. My sister kept talking, said the other partners were starting to question everything, that one of them wanted to renegotiate percentages, that another was talking about contracts, lawyers, protection. The chaos was spreading exactly the way I had imagined, maybe faster. That night, while I was brushing my teeth, I caught myself smiling at the mirror for a second. It was automatic. I only knew that none of it could be undone anymore. Update 2. My sister started showing up at the house every day, sometimes more than once a day. She came in and dropped her bag anywhere, spoke too loudly, as if she wanted to make sure I heard even when I pretended not to pay attention. She began watching me differently. Before, I had been invisible. Now, I was suspicious. During one of those visits, I was leaving my room with my phone in my hand when she appeared in the hallway. She stopped in front of me, blocking the way. Her eyes scanned my face as if searching for something specific. Guilt, fear, a confession. She asked, out of nowhere, if I had talked to anyone about the store. My whole body trembled, but I kept my voice steady. I said no, asked why. She laughed without humor, said someone had sent an anonymous message, that this person knew too much, things that only someone close could know. My parents appeared right behind her. My father tried to look neutral, but couldn't hide the tension. My mother crossed her arms, like she always did when she had already chosen a side, even while saying she hadn't. My sister kept talking, saying someone had sent old images, said that had convinced an investor to leave, and that now everything was at risk because of a jealous person. She asked if it had been me. I said it didn't make sense, that I didn't even have contact with those people, that she was looking for an easy scapegoat because she didn't want to take responsibility for her own mess. She took a step forward and said she knew I was capable of it, and that I had always been jealous. She said it had the face of revenge. My parents asked for calm, but not from me. From her, as always. She demanded to see my phone, my computer, said that if I had nothing to hide, it wouldn't be a problem. I protested just enough to sound offended, not guilty. Said it was absurd, that she was crossing a line, that I didn't owe anyone anything. In the end, I handed everything over. They searched everything right there in the living room. Opened apps, messages, history. My sister stood behind them, pointing, suggesting where to look. They found nothing. My sister lost control. She started screaming that I must have deleted everything, that I had always been too smart to leave evidence, that she knew it was me, even if she couldn't prove it. I answered for the first time without lowering my voice that it wasn't my problem if people were finally seeing who she really was. My father said there was no proof, but that her story made sense, that it was too much of a coincidence, that I had motive. My mother agreed in silence. Then he said that maybe it was time to rethink some commitments. Said paying for college was a privilege, not my right. Said he couldn't trust someone who sabotaged their own family. I cried. Said they couldn't do that to me and that I hadn't done anything, that they were punishing me for something they couldn't prove. They didn't back down. After a while, I went upstairs to my room. I thought about my money that was gone. I thought about college that was about to start. I thought about how, in the end, I had been discarded with the same ease as always. It was just the final confirmation that I needed to get out of there no matter what. I didn't sleep that night. At some point, I heard my parents talking quietly in their room. The tone wasn't doubt, it was decision. In the morning, when I walked into the kitchen, my mother was already sitting at the table. My sister wasn't there. My father started by saying that no one wanted things to have gone that far. Always that sentence. He said they had thought a lot about it. Said that even without concrete proof, it was impossible to ignore the context. That I had motive, that I had opportunity, that I had always had trouble accepting my sister's success. I tried to respond, but he shouted for silence. Said I needed to listen. My mother finally spoke. Said she was disappointed. That she had never imagined I would be capable of something like that. That regardless of whether I admitted it or not, trust had been broken. My father then said, in an objective, almost administrative tone, that they would no longer pay anything toward my college. That I needed to learn that actions have consequences. That maybe this would be an important lesson for me to mature. I asked when that had been decided. He answered that it had been that very night. I asked if they had considered the fact that they hadn't found absolutely anything on my devices. He replied that smart people know how to hide traces. That denying it was part of the game. That's when I realized nothing I said would change the script. My hands started shaking. I thought about all the nights studying, all the plans I had made counting on that help. I thought about how I had swallowed things for years just to avoid displeasing them. I said they were wrong, that they were choosing to believe the most convenient version. My mother looked away. My father ended the conversation saying he didn't want any more arguments, that the decision was made, that I should start thinking about alternatives, because adult life was like that. I went up to my room without saying anything else. I didn't cry right away. First came a strange emptiness, a clarity, as if all the pieces had finally fallen into place. I wasn't a daughter. I was an easily disposable problem. I started thinking about where I would go, who might help me, how to survive without anything I had planned on. I left the house a few days later, not in the middle of a dramatic fight, but in a silence that hurt more than any shouting. I packed my things slowly, didn't take much, a large backpack, an old bag, and my documents. My parents were home. My mother passed through the hallway while I was closing the zipper on my backpack. She looked like she was going to say something, then gave up. My father was in the office, the door closed. I didn't say goodbye. I wasn't stopped either. When I stepped outside, I felt that knot in my throat that comes when you realize something has truly ended. I went to a friend's house from high school. She lived with her parents in a nearby city. I called asking if I could stay a few days. She didn't ask questions. She told me to come. Sleeping in the guest room felt strange. In the days that followed, I started dealing with the practical side of life. I called the university, took the bus to campus to understand what could still be done, walked through hallways where everyone seemed to know exactly where they were going. I didn't. It was during that phase that my friend's parents sat down with me at their kitchen table. They said they had a fund saved for their daughter's college, but that she had decided to take some time before starting school. They said they wanted to help me. I tried to refuse, said it wasn't their responsibility, that I would figure something out. They insisted, said I could pay it back later, or not. That it wasn't a debt, it was support for their daughter's best friend. I accepted because I had no other option, and because, for the first time in a long time, someone was offering something without asking for anything in return. A few weeks later, I was in the college dorm. A small room shared with a stranger who barely spoke to me. Instant noodles, cereal bars, sometimes just coffee. At night, lying on the hard bed, I thought about the house I had left. Not with longing, but with a strange emotional distance, as if it were a story that no longer belonged to me. I still didn't know how everything would end. Not with my family. Not with my sister's business. Not with me. News about my sister's business reached me slowly, always through third parties, always fragmented. An offhand message from someone in town. A casual comment during a short phone call. Nothing direct, nothing official. First, I heard that one of the partners had left. Then that the other had demanded to renegotiate the company's split. Then that lawyers had entered the conversation. On an ordinary afternoon, my phone vibrated. It was a number I recognized, but hadn't saved. It was my mother. Her voice sounded different, less firm. She said things had fallen apart. She said my sister had ended up selling her share, said the store was no longer hers, that she had lost everything. I listened in silence. My mother said my sister was devastated, that she didn't know what she would do now, that they had tried to help, but there wasn't much left to do. I waited for something more, an apology, some space for me in that conversation. Nothing came. Before I could say anything, she added that they had discovered something about an old piece of jewelry my grandmother had left. She asked if I still had it, said it might be fair to sell it to make up for part of the money lost in the business, since I had caused all of that. What I felt wasn't anger, it was clarity. I said calmly that no, that it was mine, that I didn't live with them anymore, that I didn't depend on them anymore, that it wasn't my problem, and that the conversation made no sense. She tried to argue. I hung up. After that, I blocked everyone. My father, my mother, my sister. It wasn't impulsive. It was a considered decision. Sometime later, I found out something else. Not through her. It was a casual comment. Someone mentioned that my sister had gotten back together with that man, that while everything was falling apart, she had clung to him, said he was helping, taking care of things, organizing what money was left. Days later came the final part. They said he had disappeared, that the money from her share had gone with him, that no one could reach him, that suddenly she was alone again, but now without the store, without the partners, and without what little remained. When I heard that, I didn't feel satisfaction or pity. I felt emptiness. Like when you watch someone repeat exactly the mistake they always swore they would never make again. Months passed. I got a job on campus. Small paycheck, but enough to cover the basics. I started slowly paying back the money my friends' parents had advanced, even though they said I didn't have to. For me, I did. My routine filled up. Classes in the morning, work in the afternoon, studying at night, constant exhaustion. Today, when I look back, I don't feel proud. I don't feel regret either. I moved forward. They did too, each in their own way. And for the first time, that distance doesn't hurt. It protects.